A lady let me cut in front of her at the store because she noticed I only had condoms and laughed, saying she could tell I was in a rush. She told me I made her smile for the first time today. What things did you think would be awkward but turned into something heartwarming? 6 or 7 years ago, my girlfriend was over and spending the night. I was in my early 20s, so I was still living with my dad. She'd been up all day, so she was beat and wanted to turn in at 10. I, of course, was nowhere near ready for sleep, so I just went downstairs to read a comic book. My dad walks out of his bedroom, sees me in the living room and says, "Aren't you going to go tap that?" What? I'm just saying. You should get over there and tap it. At this point I give my dad my most sincere "what the frick" face, and he responds with a baffled, confused look in his eyes, then clarity, as he bursts out laughing and points to the television. Our living room TV, at that time, had a problem where the color would switch off to black and white, and the only way to fix it, for whatever reason, was smacking it on the side. And, sure enough, the color had faded out. I hadn't noticed because I was reading. We still laugh about that. I was working in a Dunkin' Donuts when I was like 15. There was one guy, a regular, who was always super nice. I was going to school with his daughters at the time. Well, this day must have just been a really bad day for him, and the icing on his cake was that I had handed him the wrong coffee. He proceeded to scream at me, bawl me out, and question the moral standing of my mother before storming out the door. I was freaking mortified. About a half an hour later, he came back, looking like a kicked puppy. He then proceeded to apologize to me, practically in tears, saying how all he could think of was how terrible he felt thinking about someone speaking to his daughters the way he had spoken to me. This grown man actually said to me, "I am ashamed of myself for the way I treated you. I could be your dad." I almost cried. I was so grateful. 15 years of the hospitality business later, it is still the most heartfelt, genuine apology I have ever gotten, and I still talk to his daughters. I exited Starbucks with a big coffee in my left hand, and because I broke my right hand recently, it's in a full-blown arm cast. I had to use my foot to push open the door. I noticed a woman walking towards me, so I braced it and held the door open for her with my foot. It looked awkward, I'm sure, but regardless, I'm all chivalry. She thanked me with "You're awesome, handsome," made me smile having a stranger compliment me so well. She wants your nuts. My old manager when I worked in a bar was a very serious business. Huge black man. You did not talk back to this man or interrupt one of his stories. He feared respect into everyone he met. So one day I was setting up on my own upstairs and he comes up and says, "So, I have some news. My girlfriend is..." Now, he hadn't mentioned if this news was good or bad, and by the look on his face, I judged it to be pretty bad. He was expecting me to finish his sentence, so I said the first possible thing that came into my head, "A man." And I swear, his eyes were peering straight into my soul like he was going to kill each member of my family and my firstborn child. He's staring like this for a good 5 seconds before blinking and doubling over laughing. He ran downstairs telling everyone and every sucker who came through the doors that night like it was the funniest thing he ever heard. Turns out she was pregnant. Well, how the frick was I supposed to know? Seems a wee bit more likely than your guess. Left a store with a friend in just shorts, otherwise covered in petroleum jelly. We'd done a photo shoot of him being birthed by another friend. Got in line to buy paper towels to clean up and a little old lady in front of us said, "I've been there." We'd done a photo shoot of him being birthed by another friend. You can't just say that and then not give us a story. Several years ago I was flying in the young guy next to me. I am a female, in my late 20s at the time, fell asleep and ended up sleeping on my shoulder. When he woke up he was horrified. He turned out to be a soldier headed back out to duty. He was in his civvies. I listened to him talk about getting wounded, staying with his family during his leave, his fear of going back out there. I don't think I assuaged his fears, but hopefully he felt less alone. We didn't exchange info, but I've thought about him many times. Mine is not so much heartwarming as awesome, but here goes. I had to pick up tampons for my girlfriend and was out of bacon, so of course I had to get more. The bacon happened to be on sale, so I go to check out with a basket filled with a box of tampons and 8 pounds of bacon. The cashier was a guy in his late 20s or so, and he looks at the things I'm getting and says, "Dude," he holds up his hand for a high five, "where did you find her?" I hate buying only condoms, so I'll usually get at least one other random thing just fend off my personal uncomfortable. On one occasion I bought a Nerf gun with my condoms. The cashier awkward laughed and I said something about probably not needing the condoms if I'm also buying kids toy. I was kidding though. I knew I was about to get a Santa bag's worth of pee with that gun. The bus ride home from PAX 2012. I had done the con mostly alone and was scheduled to be by myself in a double-decker megabus, wide awake with a 4.5-hour drive back to NYC. I was waiting online at the station and struck up a conversation with a guy in front of me. He was really into PlanetSide 2. I wasn't, but I had been to the Curse open bar party on Saturday and gave him the free shirt I got. Then there was this girl wearing an Iron Man hoodie, a complete stranger who rather butterfingeredly ended up spilling her coffee all over the bus station floor. Me and this guy had a bunch of napkins from our respective purchased meals. We gave them all to her and helped her clean up. Then we started talking. We ended up talking non-stop for the entire wait and the bus ride back, discussing our struggles, sharing recommendations for books and movies. It was late at night, but we didn't sleep a wink. A completely bizarre and predictably lonely trip ended up being one of the most involved and interesting conversations I had had in years. The somewhat sad and awkward follow-up. I texted them and tried to keep in contact with them both afterwards, but they just kinda drifted off and stopped responding. Felt weird being like, "Hey, talk to me butthole," so I just stopped trying to get in contact with them. It's weird because we three seem to connect unusually well. I know the female was in a relationship, so maybe I freaked her, and her boyfriend who picked her up at the bus stop out really wasn't coming on to her or anything at all. The dude? Have no idea. Weird. Plot twist. Neither of them exist, and you hallucinated the whole thing. So a couple of years ago my hockey team traveled to Europe for a tournament. We were from Canada. We faced a German team and on the ice we weren't exactly friendly. It was a pretty rough game, but after the game we traded jerseys with the team. During our last game, which meant nothing because we finished second last, the German team was in the stands cheering us on like crazy. It was pretty awesome being on the ice. The Germans ended up making it to the finals and we had to be on the bus right after our game because we had to travel to Switzerland, but we begged our parents to stay so we could cheer on the Germans like they did for us. We got what we wanted and cheered the whole game as loud as we could. Every time they scored we would run to the glass and they would celebrate with us. After they won the game they invited us on and said that the first place trophy was as much ours as it was theirs. We all gathered on the ice for a group picture. It was an amazing experience that I will never forget for the rest of my life. It was crazy how two countries could bond through a game and not even be able to communicate verbally with most of them. The cockles of my little Canadian heart are just overflowing with warmth. Bless you, hockey. I was taking a dump in a public restroom yesterday and noticed it didn't have any toilet paper. So the guy in the stall next to me let me borrow his and we kept passing it back and forth until we were done wiping. I drunk texted my crush of 7+ years and told him that I'd always liked him and gossipy stuff. He didn't respond for a long time, so I thought I'd made things really awkward. He ended up showing up at my doorstep the next day to take me out on a date because he'd always felt the same but never had the courage to tell me. It was really touching because of our history. There was a big snowstorm coming and people were clearing out store shelves of food, toilet paper, milk and other essentials. The clerk saw our purchase and gave a big grin. All we were getting was a box of condoms and a couple of chemical fireplace logs. Bare essentials. In high school I worked as a bagger at a grocery store. Someone came in late at night and had to get the manager to unlock the condom display to buy some condoms and leave. Another bagger laughed and said how embarrassing that must be, but I just was like, hey, he is getting laid. Kind of related story, I used to work at a small grocery store as a cashier. My favorite customer ever was a 20-something blonde girl who bought only 3 items, a 6-pack of Miller High Life, a small chocolate cake, and a $1 pregnancy test. I've posted this story before, but here it is again. I had a pretty crazy girlfriend who ended up convincing me to wear one of her tight dresses and walk around the local mall. I was slightly muscular and thin at the time with really short hair, so it was pretty awkward looking. As I get towards the end of the mall, a woman in her late 30s comes up to me with a huge smile on her face and tells me that she has had a really rough couple of weeks and that this was the first thing that really made her smile. She thanked me and went on her way, and it felt amazing to have had such an impact on her. This is one of many experiences that have influenced my love to do nearly anything to make people smile. My BF hates buying condoms because they're always in the locked section, and one time a Rite Aid worker just announced it through the speaker. One box of Trojan to the cashier. I always make it a point to acknowledge the awkwardness of the situation, like when I bought condoms on Easter. I have never found buying condoms to be awkward. It's only awkward if you make it awkward. I go and get him like it ain't no thing. So the cashier acts like it ain't no thing. Primarily because it ain't no thing. But a chicken wang. The best part is she knew exactly the scenario you were in because we've all been there. Crap, I'm out of condoms, what do we do? There's a store just down the street, I'll be right back. Don't go anywhere. Cue mad rush to the store and try to get back in time before she changes her mind. There was this girl that I stopped talking to because she was acting differently and didn't want to see me. Well, her parents still treated me like their own daughter. So one day after church I walked to their house to visit and see how they all were. Then I called my own house to say I was going to hang around the park for a while. My brother picked up. He said my dad was in the hospital, and that's where my mom was. I sat out, iced my friend's house and tried to stay cool about it. Then I asked her mom to drive me to the park. I sat on the bench, trying to stay together, and a total stranger started talking to me, letting me cry on her shoulder. It touched my heart to see people still cared. I don't have a story of my own, but I still get people who are shocked when I say that they can go in front of me at the store. It's sad that common courtesy is no longer a part of many people's lives. I was wasting time in books a million, thinking about picking up some drawing supplies. I wandered to the colored pens by the register and accidentally overheard a conversation. Loud man, I can make any woman think of me. My ex-girlfriend told me that she was thinking of me and didn't know why. Cashier ladies, are okay. I frantically tried to become invisible and look away. I didn't manage to become invisible, but I did manage to not look at the loud customer. I did almost lock eyes with the cashiers. After the loud customer left, I discovered what he had purchased. A book of magic spells. Well, that didn't answer the question at all. It was a strange tale. Nevertheless, SKJKDJ would read nonsense again. I was walking Whaling the seafront with my dad, my little sister and my girlfriend of the time when we stopped to get ice cream. Dad always has a Mr. Whippy 99 cone. We walked at most 10 paces before the ice cream fell from the top of his cone and splat onto the pavement in front of his sandals. He just looked at it for a moment, and he went from 50 to a heartbroken 5 years old. The lady behind the ice cream counter saw this and called him over, refilling it for free. He lit up again. Cutest mental image ever. I was on a beer and mixers run for a get together we were having for the holidays. My roommate's girlfriend called and asked me to pick up tampons. I figure frick it, this'll be awkward enough. Why not? My housemates and I are close and we were having an orphan Christmas. So I've finished shopping for no juice and go to the land that men don't dare tread. 2 minutes pass and I have no idea of which lady products to get. Here comes my guide. Her name is Amber. Sweet Amber helped me after I explained my situation. I was feeling particularly witty as I follow her to the counter to pay for my purchases. I ask Amber, so does this require me to turn in my man card? She swipes the talons and says, this does. However, that does not. You broke even this time. That she was referring to was the half-gallon of Jack Daniel I was cradling under my arm, as well as a bottle of Macallan. As she handed me my receipt, her number was written on the back. I text her my address and she came and parties with us. Not only did I not surrender my man card, I even got laid that night. Around 3 years ago with my ex-girlfriend, she was in med school doing her surgical rotations, and I was working as an engineer. Think size admin. not pole climber, at a cable company. She was working 7 AM to 4 PM and I was working 4 midnight. So, needless to say, we didn't get to see each other much. She lived around the corner from me, and most days she would drop off her dog at my apartment before work. Often, I'd stay up all night after work so I could see her when she dropped her off. On this particular morning, I had attempted to stay up, but wound up falling asleep in bed. I kind of half woke up when I heard my apartment door open, but was mostly asleep. Then I felt her get on the bed with me and heard her say, "Hey, I brought you some ice cream. It's in the freezer." I mumbled something like "thanks babe," or whatever. Then she said also, "I brought you cookies. They're on the counter," and I reply, still mostly asleep, and with my eyes closed, "I love you," which I had never said to her, or anyone else. All at once it struck me what I had just said and my eyes shot open and she was actually laying in bed with me, her face a few inches from mine. She just smiled, said, "I know, I love you too. Not go to bed," kissed me on the nose, pulled the puppy into bed with us, then waited for me to fall asleep before going to the hospital for work. TLDR. Accidentally told my girlfriend I loved her because she bought me cookies and ice cream. She told she loved me too. Similar story to you. My toilet backed up and I had to go to Walmart to buy a plunger. For some reason the lines were really long that night. A bit flustered, I walked up to the front, showed the plunger to the dude in the front of the line, and said, "You mind if I cut in line? It's kind of an emergency." He, the guy behind him, and the lady behind him all started busting up simultaneously. Soon the entire line and the checkout employees were laughing and sympathizing with my plight. I went from being down in the dumps when I entered the store to laughing at my own situation when I left. Down in the dumps. I have been dealing with depression most of my life. I could remember being suicidal at the tender age of 6 or 7. Tough home life, etc. At any rate, by the time I was 17 and in my last year of high school, I met the love of my life and the world began looking a little brighter. One day I stopped by a gas station to buy a large fountain drink. I walked in, cheerily said hello to the cashier, which I saw frequently, and went about filling my drink. The cashier looked at me and said, "Why are you always so smiley?" I laughed and shrugged. "I don't know. I'm in a good mood." He asked if I was in a good mood all the time. I said, "Usually, I try to be." This was more or less a lie, because I hadn't been happy in so very long. As I went to pay for my drink, a Mexican man wearing the largest sombrero I have ever seen smiled widely at me, said, "Good. You are so young. You should always be happy. Do not let anyone ever take that away from you." Even now, facing possibly the worst depression of my life, I smile when I think of him and whenever someone is being rude to me, or life is being awful. Bought a young woman a Subway sandwich the other day. Her debit card got denied. She claimed her check should have gone through. I believed her and honestly I didn't care. I asked her how much she was short on cash. She said most of it, so I handed her some cash. She tried to hand her chips and fountain drink back, but I wouldn't have it. She let me have some of the chips and I made a friend. Money's money. I'll make some more tomorrow. Hopefully. I mean, I don't have a job, but it's a nice sentiment. A friend of mine has a great story from his second year at university. First year living away from home. He had a lady over for the evening. They were both having drinks, getting on and such, and things progressed. She asked if he had condoms, and he said no, but I'll grab some from my flatmate. Went out to the lounge and asked, but his flatmate didn't have any left. That's all good, he thought to himself. I'll just dash down to the petrol station on the corner. She'll never know I'm gone if I'm fast. So there he is, running top speed down a Dunedin street at 10:50 PM. Petrol station closed at 11. In only shorts. The temperature was about 4-5 centigrade. 40 F. Gets to the petrol station only to discover he only has $2 in his shorts and the condoms are $6. I've got this, he thinks, and buys a $2 scratch off lotto ticket. Luck is with him and he wins $20. He buys the condoms and runs back to his room. He almost got away with it without her realizing, but when he got back into bed feeling like a popsicle, she guessed. One of his flatmates confirmed this to me too. He went to the petrol station the next day and, understandably, the cashier remembered him. So it's not all a pack of lies, just an amazingly lucky moment. Getting a lecture from my teacher for getting caught giving a handy after school in a bathroom. She didn't yell. She just said I was better than that and she wished I wouldn't have done it. But we're all young and stupid sometimes and we make mistakes. She just hoped I'd be a little more modest next time and that I was beautiful and didn't need guys like that to feel good. She gave me a hug and was nice to me for the rest of the year. When I was in the 3rd grade, my class and I went on a field trip to some nature reserve out in the woods. Back then my bladder control wasn't too superb and well, long story short, I peed my pants in the middle of the field trip with no way to hide it. One of my classmates had noticed what had happened and the embarrassment began to soak in faster than the urine had in my pants. However, to my disbelief, he proceeds to fill his hands with water and pour it all over his own pants. Now keep in mind, this classmate was much older than the rest of us. He had to repeat about every grade, and because of his age everyone looked up to him a lot. One of my other classmates sees his pants and says, "Hey, look everybody, Billy peed his pants." To which Billy replies, "Of course I peed my pants. Everybody my age pees their pants. It's the coolest. You ain't cool unless you pee your pants. TL. Dr. O'Doyle rules." Today I was at work holding a sign on a street corner listening to my iPod. I thought about it and realized that I will never see most of the people that drive by here, so why do I care what they think of me, and I decided that it would be okay to lip sync along to what I was listening to. I was really getting into it and felt really awkward the whole time, but a few people smiled when they passed, others honked, and some more waved. It was a good day. One night after I had recently started seeing a guy, I was staying over at his place when I realized I had a female problem. I woke up at 4 AM and needed feminine products immediately. Normally, I would have just gone home, but I had forgotten my keys and cell phone in my apartment and I was locked out. I was freaking out, utterly mortified, and had to explain my situation. He was very understanding and acted like it was no big deal at all. He immediately sneaked into his roommate's room, grabbed his roommate's car keys and drove me to the store, saying it was no problem. We went to 3 different stores before finding one that was open and sold what I needed. By the time we got back it was 5 AM and we had to be up early, so I felt really awful about everything. He told me he was glad to do it because it meant he got to spend the whole night with me, instead of me going home. Accidentally thrust into the wrong hole. Turns out she was really into that, but didn't know how to bring it up. We were never closer. I am female. I was at Walmart in the public washrooms going pee because I'd had a lot of water on a hike earlier in the day. I heard everyone leave the restroom and evidently, the lady beside me thought everyone was gone too because she let a huge fart rip. I tried with everything I had to contain my laughter, but I let a little giggle slip and we both started laughing hysterically. Never saw her face. Just laughed in the bathroom together for a good 5 minutes. I went to hospital for wisdom teeth removal. When they moved me into recovery, an amazingly attractive nurse tended to me and fed me some water. I proceeded to tell her that she was really attractive, but unfortunately my face was still very anesthetized, so it was immediately followed by a huge amount of drool dribble. She seemed to think that was pretty funny. I always have the opposite problem. I think something is going to be sweet or heartwarming, and then I'm drenched in awkwardness. I was once grocery shopping late at night and was in line with just one thing. I was behind a cute guy, and he smiled and offered to let me go in front of him since I had so few items. I think he was also trying to flirt and hoping to talk to me in line, and I accepted with a smile. Then the woman behind me jumps at the chance and butts in and asks if she can go before him too because she only has a couple things and she was already at the store once earlier but forgot milk and her son is waiting for her at home to be tucked into bed and blah, blah, blah. Small town. I knew the woman and she was very self-righteous. The guy acts reluctant but awkwardly lets her go in front of him. Now we had a smug woman separating us in line. No flirting was to be had. See, that bothers me tremendously. You can't just take advantage of someone's kindness and assume you're entitled to it as well. At Walmart buying condoms and wearing a cool hat. Lady in Jesus shirt comes up, ask where did you get that gift do I do? She points to my hat and we have a jolly good talk while I hide condoms behind my back. Also, why is gift in my phone's autocorrect? Siri likes to keep in touch with trends. This will probably get buried, but it was such a strange moment in my life. I was in high school at some district choir concert rehearsal, dicking around and not wanting to be there. On my concert music book were a bunch of names and phone numbers from kids who must have performed together years ago. So, me just wanting to see what happens, I call a number next to the name Joshua. A man answers the phone and all I say is, "Hello, is Joshua there?" He seemed surprised that I asked. Joshua passed away 4 years ago. At this point, my jaw drops and I feel like a piece of crap. I apologize to him profusely and say I had no idea as I end the call. When I hang up I explain to my friends what happened, only to get a call back from the number. I answer. This time, a woman on the line. His mother. "Did you just call and ask for Joshua?" I try really hard to explain, essentially just telling her that I found this name and number and was just messing around, not trying to harass or prank anyone. She assures me that she isn't mad. She tells me that I had spoken to Joshua's father and caught him off guard, and then she remembered. It was his birthday today. So, in a way, she was glad that something reminded them about him. I still can't exactly wrap my head around it, but it's made such a lasting impression on me. Every the 17th of March from that day, I think about that phone call. This thread. I thought this thread would be awkward, but it has warmed my heart, like a particularly well insulated hamster nestling into the comfort of a miniature armchair. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.